Congratulations, Woosh. 2024 Neale Daniher Lifetime Achievement Award winner. Huge honour. Obviously, we go back quite a long way, given we played together and then we probably coached with or against each other at times. So I remember first memories of you when I walked into the Eagles was this bespectacled sort of guy from South who ended up becoming the captain and always led the team with passion and a selfless attitude, which I think's flowed through to your coaching. So what was your first thought when you got appointed as coach of West Coast Eagles?
My first thought was, oh no, what have I got myself into? I'd only been at Carlton for 2 years, so a very short apprenticeship, which was probably the first thing was, I'm going to stand in front of a group of players that I'm now going to be the coach of, and I haven't coached anywhere at any level in my own right previously. So there was those nerves, but I'd done a fair bit of research and spoken to David Parkin, who had been in my coach at Carlton when I started my coaching journey, and just checked in with him and said, am I too young? Is it too early for me to be considering these roles? And he just said, no, you've got all the tools, you've got what you need. If you feel comfortable to go for it, you should go for it. So that was probably in the back of my mind, that if someone with his experience had seen me over a year or two, thought I was ready, I would back myself in.
Obviously, David was a outstanding coach in his own right. Who was probably the biggest influence on you as a coach?
I think everyone has an influence on you along the way. Yeah. So I had Ron Alexander building a club from scratch, bringing a group of guys together that had been competitors the year before in the WAFL, and we're all of a sudden going to be, in 3 months, become a tight-knit team. And I watched the way Ron went about it, and was really took a lot from the way Ron, his personality and his coaching style. Then John Todd, totally different. Toddy, obviously, massively successful football person in WA. So again, just learned a lot about probably list management as much as anything from Toddy. And then Mick for the next 10 years, the way he set a style of play that got all the boys to buy into and commit to, and stuck firm on that, supported the team all the way through. So, definitely a lot of those guys. And then obviously working with Parko for a short period of time, rounded it out, going to Melbourne, seeing a big Melbourne club and the different culture and how they operated things. So it gave me a good grounding.
Pretty impressive 4 men to learn from across.
Yeah, pretty lucky.
You think of their history in the game. How would you describe yourself as a coach?
I would say, I'm a coach that listens to what's going on, listens to people, values everyone's input, and uses that to guide the decision-making around what's best for the group, not just what feels right for me. So I was very clear on, I can be stubborn, but very clear on the way we want to do things and guide everything in line with that. But what I learned early in my coaching career was it's easier to get everyone to align when they've got some say and some ownership of the direction you want to go. So I've used that pretty heavily.
What did you love about coaching?
Just being part of a team, being part of a committed group, focusing on the ultimate achievement that you're trying to get to together, but knowing there's so many facets that you have to have right to actually be the ultimate success on the field. Knowing that when you get there and you achieve together, and that may or may not be a premiership, but when you start to get the results you're aiming for, it's a pretty special feeling that you've done it as a group.
What did you find difficult about coaching?
There is so much that is a challenge. I suppose it's trying to sift through the weeds and focus on the big stuff that's going to have an actual impact, because there's so many things in terms of the way the game's played, the way your schedule looks, time off for players versus, making sure they're doing the work to be well prepared but not mentally and emotionally overloading them. Probably the one thing, if I really am honest, that I didn't like was this, sitting in front of a camera and just having to be a public figure. That was probably the biggest challenge for me.
What do you miss about coaching?
Probably the adrenaline rush of knowing, every 5, 6 or 7 days, all your preparation is going to be on show. And you want to see what it's going to deliver. So you're nervous, you never really know. The number of times in the number of games I coached throughout my AFL career, if I had have thought I can predict what's going to happen here, it would be very, very few. It was just a ride to go along with. From thinking our preparation has been brilliant, the players are up and about, they look fresh, and you go out and you're 4 goals down at the 20-minute mark and you don't know where that's come from, to thinking this has been it's a short break, we're a bit sore, this is going to be a really hard one, and you're 6 up at quarter time. I don't know. That's probably what I love about it.
Best win as a coach, outside of obviously the grand finals, what's one you fondly look back on?
Well, there's probably 2 that stand out. One would be the game against Geelong in 2006 when we were 54 points down midway through the third quarter. Just the players' belief to keep working hard that it could turn at some point. And you could just feel it turning. It wasn't through any coaching moves or any great oration at three-quarter time or half-time. It was just knowing the players feel like they're just starting to get a bit of a gap here on their opponent, attacking the footy and moving the ball. And I remember in the coach's box saying, this looks different than it's been for the previous 2.5 quarters. There's something happening here.
A fair way back.
Yeah, and then it just kept rolling. And then it became goal for goal in the last 3 minutes. So to end up in front was pretty special. The other one was the last game of 2016, coaching Essendon at the end of the year, which was going to signal the suspensions have finished for the suspended players. They're going to be back available now the season's done for us. But we were playing the arch enemy Carlton at the MCG. We'd only won 2 games for the year. So everyone could have taken it as though, let's just get this game out of the way, wipe the year. But the boys got up and beat Carlton. Pretty special effort. And what it meant to the Essendon supporters, it felt like it was a premiership win. It actually signalled that we'd won the wooden spoon. But every player on the squad was on the ground at the end of the game, all went up to the members and the cheer squad behind the goals. It was just one of those ones I'll never forget.
You mentioned the Essendon thing, and obviously that was a pretty unique and tricky situation. You also got involved with Adelaide after the passing of Phil Walsh. How did you handle those situations? Because obviously they're both very unique.
With Adelaide, it was very close to me personally, having worked with Walshy for so long. And so I sort of had to park my personal emotional side as much as I could and focus on, okay, what needs to happen here? We don't know how to deal with it, but we know what's sort of got to happen is that in 8 days or so, we need to be playing footy again. So it was really obviously just getting the players in, the coaching staff in, just talking about the current reality of where we sit right now. But what do we need to do and how we're going to go about doing that? And we need to do it together. You know, I'd been out of footy for 18 months or so, and that reminded me what I loved about the game, which was the teammanship and that the competition, as ruthless and as cutthroat as it is, still went out of its way to support one footy club come through, you know, the toughest period. Yeah, the Essendon period was really tough, and it was like, okay. And when I first got there were no suspensions in place. It was just an appeal hanging over our head. So we were hopeful nothing would come of that. So my first 3 months were different to my next 9 months. First 3 months was we've got a full squad here led by Joe Watson, and we're going to set ourselves up for what we want to achieve going forward. And then 3 months later, 12 suspensions, had to work out what the rules were, how we're going to replace those players. So again, the immediate focus was how do we get a team on the field that physically and mentally is going to be ready to play AFL footy in 6 or 8 weeks. So that was a challenge, but again, just get everyone on board. Let's talk about what's happened. Let's get everyone's input, find out from the players what would a successful year look like for us this year. And we really threw that around and came up with a committed target for the year. And, you know, I think we strongly achieved that.
Always get asked a question from players I've coached, but who, and I won't let you name one, I'll give you 3 favourite players to coach.
Oh, that is almost harder. I'd almost rather
I'll
pick
go one then if you want.
To coach.
To coach.
Beau Waters. If you can imagine coaching someone and knowing the way I played the game, having to call Beau Waters into my office and say, mate, you just can't go that hard. You have to pull back because the game was changing and he'd been suspended a couple of times for big hits. That was tough, but he just was a heart and soul player. Unfortunately, injuries curtailed him a bit, but he held up and put his body on the line as much as any player I've ever seen in the game. And look, everyone walked tall with Bo out there alongside them.
Which obviously to win the Neale Daniher Lifetime Achievement Award, and you came across Neale in your time at West Coast. How significant was Neale, or the impact he had on you as a coach?
He was just a great support. He came at a time when we were going to go through a bit of a rebuild, and we needed to really be tight-knit and focus on that. And his support of me through that period was brilliant. Neale had great coaching expertise himself, but he just knew how to give some advice here and there, but knew the senior coach needs to be making the calls, feel the ownership of his program and believe in what he's doing. So, through that tough period, that tough rebuild period of West Coast through 2008, 9, 10, he was amazingly supportive and a big part of us having success fairly quickly out of that period.
Over to you, mate. I'll throw to you if there's some people you want to thank or some words you want to say. Obviously a massive honour, and I'll leave it with you.
Yeah, well, I suppose I'm still talking to you, not the camera, but really I'd like to thank everyone that I've been involved with through the footy clubs that I've been involved with. The West Coast Eagles obviously gave me my start at AFL level, but I came from the South Fremantle Footy Club, and they supported me from a very young age. South Fremantle Footy Club gave me some opportunities that other young kids didn't get when I was 15 years old. That sort of kept my passion for the game. That it was already a light, but that really said to me, gee, people are good in this game, and it's going to open up pathways. So into the West Coast Eagles, obviously the Carlton Football Club gave me the opportunity to move out of pharmacy. I was a full-time pharmacist for a year, joined Carlton to have a look at football on the other side of the country at a big Melbourne footy club and work with David Parkin, which was amazing. Then Adelaide Footy Club, as much as the tragic time there, I learned a lot from them in that short period of time, and was really pleased to just be part of working through a real tragic issue, and seeing how strong they were working through that. And then the Essendon Footy Club, to be involved with them for 5 years, some wonderful memories, tough, challenging times, but really enjoyed helping Essendon get back on track to just be seen as a footy club and not the club that was going through a supplements issue. And, I think we worked pretty strongly through that together. So all those clubs, a lot of great people along the way, probably too many to mention. All the coaches that I learnt from, we've already touched on them. The players that I've coached, but even going further, just everyone involved in footy clubs. From when I was playing, we had a lot of volunteers. Those guys had as much impact on helping me get to where I wanted to get to as anyone. And similar when I was coaching, people that were giving up their time to help the team go out and do their stuff. So, I'll never forget all those people as well. It's a great competition, the AFL. It is cutthroat and competitive, but everyone wants to see everyone else succeed.
Yeah. Well, congratulations, mate. I know I'll speak probably on behalf of all the guys who played underneath you, the impact you would have had on their life, and it's a great honour for you to be recognised as the 2024 Neale Daniher Lifetime Achievement from the Coaches Association. So, well done.
Thank you, mate.
Oh, well, mate.